Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 ready to hit some SEC bracketology heading into the weekend. Most of these numbers are updated through at least Wednesday night's games, which is the last time the SEC played a basketball game. Blake, let's get right into it. We're going to go over a lot of metrics for these teams. We'll start at the top where Alabama is the second number one seed in bracket matrix. We've got a bunch of metrics we're going to throw at you. I've averaged 5 predictive computers: BPI, Bart Torvik, Ken Pomeroy, Jeff Sagarin, and KPI. Don't know how much the committee will use those, but just that is something that gets mentioned at times. Alabama, an average of number 2 in those. Alabama number 2 in the net. Alabama number 2 strength of resume. According to ESPN, it is 21-3. It is 6-3 in quad one. No losses outside that. Important wins for the Tide. Houston on the road, number 1 team in the net, beat Arkansas at home, Michigan State on a neutral floor, North Carolina on a neutral floor, Memphis on a neutral floor, Kentucky at home. Sorry, Memphis was at home, and Missouri on the road. Now look, North Carolina, Memphis, Kentucky, all bubble teams. Take that for what it's worth. Also, Alabama beat Liberty, which is currently, I think, just barely inside the top 50 of the net. But everything points to Alabama as a strong number 1 seed to this point, and I have a feeling things will remain that way between now and Selection Sunday.
Yeah, no surprise. I mean, they're either the first or second best team in the country, and so yeah, I mean, there's very little that's going to knock them from that range, barring losing a lot of games or losing to teams they shouldn't lose to. Because if you take Alabama out of the one spot, you got to replace them with somebody, and I don't think the 2 line is that overly impressive right now. So yeah, I mean, I think Alabama's sitting in a good spot, 11-0 in league play, and until they start losing some games, they're not going anywhere. So
All right, as of Friday morning, and we're referencing bracket matrix, which sometimes will lag a couple of days. Tennessee is the third number 2 seed. Predictive computers average Tennessee at number 4. Tennessee 3 in the net. Here comes the problem. Strength of resume is 12, thanks to some quad 2 losses that are dragging the Vols down. Now, Tennessee does have some good wins. Texas at home, Kansas on a neutral floor, Maryland on, I believe, a neutral floor, Auburn at home, and Southern Cal on a neutral floor. All those teams right now, I think, would be in the field of 68. So Tennessee does have some good wins. And look, no quad 3 or quad 4 losses, but losses at Vandy, to Colorado, Kentucky at home have dinged the Vols a little bit here.
yeah, I mean, when you lose to teams that aren't in the tournament, that's going to hurt you, and that's what they've done. I mean, Arizona is, everyone else, like you said, it's just kind of. I mean, Kentucky, I think, is the second or last team in or something right now for some people, first team out, however you want to put it. But so yeah, I mean, that's what's hurting them, is yet they're still there in that 2 line. They just have a lot of losses to teams that aren't. I mean, not a lot of losses, but their losses include teams that aren't in the field, and so you got to make up that ground somewhere. And to this point, a Kansas win, a Maryland win, Texas win, Auburn's kind of sliding a bit. So yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting stretch the rest of the way, because when you look at it right now, I'd say 6 of Tennessee's final 7 games are against teams that are projected to be in the tournament or are one of the first 4 teams out. So yeah, it'll be important for them to. They I think have a lot of variety with where their seeding can go, because they play probably the toughest schedule left of anybody, maybe. So.
All right, next in bracket matrix, Auburn is the 4th team on the 7 seed line. The predictive computers average Auburn at 26. Net has Auburn at 32. Strength of resume is 27. Tigers 17-7 overall. 4-5 on the road, 2-1 neutral. Boy, Auburn has a big quality wins problem. 1-5 against quad 1, 6-2 against quad 2. It's combined 10-0 against quads 3 and 4. But Auburn's wins of note right now: Arkansas at home and Northwestern on a neutral floor. Northwestern very much a bubble team that may or may not hold up. Auburn's got some work to do, but it can certainly take a big step if it were to beat Alabama in Neville Arena on Saturday.
Yeah, just need more good wins, and it's kind of a situation where that would obviously help it. They still got 2 games against Alabama. They still got Tennessee. Going to Kentucky, I mean, that'll be a quality victory if they would get that one. So Missouri still there. So yeah, Auburn by no means safe, and I mean I've pointed this out for a while now. There's 2 teams that are safe. Everybody else is not completely safe just yet. So I think Arkansas is getting closer than anyone else, but Alabama, Tennessee fully in. I think Arkansas is pretty much almost there, and everybody else I think can play their way out. So Auburn's one of those teams that can. And somebody I think thought I was crazy when I said that a couple weeks ago, but they can absolutely play their way out of this thing. But
Yeah.
I would expect them to find enough to stay in there. Because right now, probably more of a projected 9 seed somewhere in there, 8 or 9 maybe. But with still 7 games to go, that can drop a bit. So yeah, I mean these are big games left, and they just need to pick up a couple quality wins here or there, and I think they'll wind up being fine in terms of making the field, not maybe fine with where their seeding could be.
All right, Missouri is the third number 8 seed in bracket matrix. Predictive computers average Missouri at 50. Net has Missouri at 48. I think Missouri actually is. I know this is going to sound weird because Missouri's behind Auburn. I think Missouri actually safer at this point. Here are the numbers that back that up. Missouri 18-6 overall, 2-4 on the road. Missouri's had some troubles there. 2-0 neutral, 3-6 against quad 1, but no losses against quads 2, 3, and 4. Wins over and this is where the strength of Missouri's resume is. Wins over Iowa State at home, Arkansas at home, Illinois on a neutral floor, also Kentucky and UCF, which are bubble teams at this point. Is that crazy? I look at the big wins, and Missouri's done a lot more in that regard. And again, no losses outside of quad 1, which is, I think that's a big thing too.
Yeah, I don't know that I would go as far as to say I think Missouri's safe. Maybe safer than Auburn. I think that's fair, but I don't know that they're safe yet because
No, I don't think they're safe, but I think
yeah,
if you compare those head to head, yes.
yeah. I mean, as we said, like some of the numbers I'm bringing up are just kind of random ones I've seen. I know, like you said, Bracket Matrix has Auburn as 7. I think that's too high. I think they're more like an 8 or a 9. I think they're probably more like closer to the 9 right now than they are the 7. But if it's just the quality wins thing, like you said, I think that's the issue I would have looking at their overall resume. But again, that can change completely on Saturday. But Missouri's non-conference schedule, he said, is not really doing anything for them right this second outside of, I mean, obviously the Kansas, Illinois games, UCF's kind of hit a rough patch that really would have helped a lot, but they've lost 5 of 6. And so, yeah, I mean, the win over Iowa State was the biggest one, I think, just because you do have a team here that has quality wins and they don't have any bad losses yet. And that's what we keep saying is these next 4 games for Missouri, Tennessee, Auburn, A&M, Mississippi State, you're not going to take a bad loss in there anywhere. Now, you can't afford to lose all 4 of them, but you're not really going to take a bad loss. And then your final 3 games, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, that's where things start to get tricky. If you're Missouri and let's say you go 1-3 in the next 4 games, then it's like, well, if you were to drop one of those final 3 games, then things are getting a little, suspect in terms of where they would be at that point. But keeping the clean sheet outside, keeping the no bad losses theme going. Yes, I think Missouri is safer just because they don't have any bad losses yet, and they'll have 3 opportunities to do that in the final 3 games. But if they pick up another quality win or 2, they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think you said it well. Missouri is 11-0 against quads 3 and 4. So the bulk of Missouri's wins have come against teams that are non-factors. But as you said, bad loss avoidance has been a big thing. By the way, strength of resume, ESPN's got Missouri's at 22 and Auburn's at 27. It has Arkansas's at 31. The Razorbacks are 20 in the predictive computers, 23 in the net. Arkansas has had trouble winning on the road, but that has started to change recently. The Hogs still, though, 2-5, 3-1 on neutral courts, 2-1 against quad 1, 4-1 quad 2, 8-1 quad 3, and 3-0 quad 4. Wins of significance. This is where Arkansas is having some trouble. San Diego State, that was on a neutral floor. Missouri, that was on the road. Those are the only two teams that Arkansas has beaten right now that are for sure in the tournament. Wins against teams that might get there. A&M at home, Kentucky on the road, and Oklahoma on a neutral floor. The Razorbacks are going to be an interesting team. They're playing much better lately. I think they'll get there. It's going to be interesting to see how the committee factors in Nick Smith's return. If Smith comes back and is anything resembling the player that we thought he would be.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to ask me right now, Arkansas, Missouri, Auburn, rank them 1 to 3 in terms of confidence level. I don't know who 2 and 3 would be, but I'd put Arkansas at 1. So, and it's it's a product of how they're playing, and this is getting into the NCAA tournament. This is a product of how they're playing. It's the product of likely getting Nick Smith back. And so they also, like Tennessee, have probably one of the tougher schedules left because Arkansas, they may have the toughest schedule left because they've got to go to A&M, Alabama, and Tennessee. So, yet I still think that they're going to find their way into this thing, and the strength of schedule is only going to get better because of their remaining schedule. And so, for Arkansas, they're 6-5. I think in Arkansas at 9-9 is probably okay. I would think they are okay because that, again, the only game they have left that's not going to come against a NCAA tournament bubble team is Georgia, or bubble team or better is Georgia. So they're going to, if they get to 9-9, they're 6-5 now. They're going to pick up 3 more wins of significance. Now, some could be more significant than the others if you win at Alabama or win at Tennessee or both, but that's where I think Arkansas is sitting in a good spot because they're trending in the right direction just in terms of their play, but they also have all these quality win opportunities left, and they just so happen to be playing their best basketball heading into that stretch and perhaps getting back a top player in the league to go along with it. So I would, in my confidence rankings of those 3 teams, I would rank Arkansas at the top in terms of, not going to say lock, but that's why I said earlier. I think for me, it's Alabama, Tennessee are fully in. I think Arkansas is the closest to getting there, even ahead of, just in my opinion, Missouri and Auburn right now.
All right, next team in bracket matrix, Kentucky is the 4th 11 seed. I'll be honest, I'm not confident Kentucky makes the field if it's picked today, at least not if I'm in charge. Look, I get how good Kentucky can be, but even the predictive computers have only got Kentucky at 40, which is exactly where the net has Kentucky. Cats number 44 in strength of resume. Every single metric here screams bubble. 16-8 overall, 3-3 on the road, 1-2 neutral sites, 1-7 against quad 1. Quad 2, 6-0, 3, 3-0, and quad 4, 6-1. As we've said, Kentucky, it is astonishing that we are in the middle of February and Kentucky has as many quad 4 losses as quad 1 wins. Of course, that win was a big one. That was in Knoxville. And I'm trying to look at other wins that could be significant. Beat Florida at home last week. Beat A&M at home last week. Yale, Michigan. You really have to, I'm not going to say stretch it because A&M's a good win, but A&M's not in the tournament right now, I don't think, Blake.
I do.
Kentucky. Well, I'm just not. I'll get to them in a minute, but I'm not sold on that yet. But anyway,
I think A&M would be ahead of Kentucky right now, just personal opinion. And again, I'm not a bracketologist.
I would put them there, yeah.
But they're 9-2 in league play. They've beaten Auburn twice. They've beaten Florida twice. They've beaten Missouri. Now, the non-conference schedule is an issue. But I still think that I think I would put A&M in right now. Now, again,
and just a point of clarification, I would too. I'm going straight off what Bracket Matrix is reading this morning. And again, I think they lag a couple of days. I'm with you. I'm just pointing out that's where they are. But
yeah,
I don't disagree. I just wanted to to be clear for the audience here.
Yeah, no, I mean it's look, they're not in safely, but I think they're in right now. I think they're probably one of the last 4 teams in, or yeah, I think that's the right range to put them in. But their net's at a 37. They got 2 quad 1 wins. Now the problem for A&M, of course, is what they've got 2 quad 4 losses, like you said, and that is the issue for them because I think that's the most of any team in the SEC. Um, but I'm willing to bet that if you, well, here's how it should be. I don't know if it's the way it is, but like there has to come a point where we can't just continue to harp on what happened 2 months ago. Like, if you're an NCAA tournament committee and you're trying to put the best field together, isn't that the line they give us every year? We're trying to give you the best field, the best 68 teams, obviously with the qualifiers added in. You can't tell me that Texas A&M is not one of those teams past December the 20th, which is almost 2 months ago now. So they're going to get knocked because of the Murray State and Wofford losses. But what have they done like since that point? I think we have to factor that into the full body of work, and what they've done since that point is tremendous. And so they're 9-2 in the SEC. Like again, even if A&M goes 12-6, they're an NCAA tournament team. Like you can't tell me a team, even in this year's SEC, where like we said, maybe it's certainly not as good as it has been in recent years, but 12-6, I don't know how you keep them out. So I think that's kind of it for A&M is just kind of looking at where they are now. Again, they lose at LSU on Saturday, all of a sudden the wheels start spinning in reverse. But I feel more confident where A&M is right now than I do Kentucky, and so obviously a factor of that is one's 9-2, one's 7-4 in the SEC. A&M has a couple bad losses. Kentucky has one bad loss, and so maybe you're just picking apart those things. But A&M also has one more quad one win. So yeah, I don't. Kentucky for me is not. They've got a lot of work to do. I don't even think it's even a little work to do. They still got a lot of work to do. For their final 7 games are on the road. Good opportunities at home against Tennessee and Auburn, I guess. But I Kentucky's going to be the most fascinating team, mainly because they're Kentucky, but they're going to be the most fascinating one because I think I have way more confidence in A&M's resume right now than I do in Kentucky's moving forward.
Here's 2 problems for A&M. Strength of resume, which I hear that a lot. I presume they're using ESPN's number. ESPN actually has Kentucky's strength of resume higher than A&M's, 44-51. Now, look, I went over, and this is where I'm fearful for A&M. You know how much time I spent last year dissecting the bracket, and I bet I looked at 70 teams, Blake. All the ones in the field and probably another 15 that weren't. And I looked at everything. A&M, the committee at some point just decided nothing in the NCAA tournament mattered. Not only did I think A&M should have been in, I think I had A&M as a 9 seed. And I don't think I was wrong. I think what happened is I don't think the committee factored in the wins over Auburn and Arkansas. It put a lot of weight on out of conference, not scheduling strong, which A&M did again this year. I thought it was one of the most absurd decisions I've ever seen. I don't know how you could have looked at the total body of work and left A&M out, but the committee did. And just going on history, I see this thing potentially setting up the same way. No, the difference this year, A&M 9-2 in regular season play, and 9-9 is what A&M's record was a year ago in the conference regular season play. So that's probably the difference, but I'm just not as sold that this is a dead issue. And I'm not saying you are. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I just remember history. I thought it was absurd that A&M got left out a year ago, and I could see a scenario playing out again this year where something similar can happen.
Well, I mean, look, here's the deal. The tournament's not being fielded today. If it was being fielded today, it's one thing,
Yeah.
but we are projecting 7 games ahead in an SEC where Vanderbilt just beat Tennessee at the buzzer. South Carolina's won at Kentucky. Go down the list of just wild occurrences this season. So like we're that's all we can do. We can project ahead, and it's like what you've seen to this point, projecting ahead using that data as a reference. What I've seen tells me that A&M is going to win at least 3 of their final 7 games. Now, again, 4 of those are on the road, and I mean, the road games, I think they can win at LSU and Ole Miss. 3 toughest games left are at home: Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama. I think they win at least one of those. Um, so I just think 9-2 has to count for something if we're fielding the
Yeah.
tournament today. And if they finish 12-6 in the league, they have to be in the tournament. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Like based on their remaining schedule, if they get to 12 wins in league play, even if 2 of those wins come against LSU and Ole Miss, and one of them comes against a Missouri on the road or an Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama at home, that's a quality win. If they lose the others, those are all going to be quad 1 or quad 2 losses. So, I mean, they have to beat LSU. They have to beat Ole Miss. If they do that and they can win, like I said, at least one more of those other games, maybe it's close, but I just don't know how they would not be in at that point if they at least go 12-6 in the league. So,
Yeah, and I don't know
yeah.
that that's a bad argument. I just am curious how the committee is going to treat it. So you think 12-6 doesn't really matter who they are? They're going to look at that and say in.
Well, it does matter because I don't think they can lose to LSU or Ole Miss, because then all of a sudden you have 3. I mean, you're not,
3
hopefully
quad
don't lose
4
both.
losses.
You can't have that many, because then I think that gets very tricky.
Would those be
But it's
quad
like,
4 losses?
what's that?
Or are they quad 3? I think they'd be quad 3, wouldn't they?
Maybe they would. I guess that's probably right. Even then, that's just, I don't think that's something you can do right now if you're A&M. And if you're A&M Kentucky, the formula is very simple. You're the biggest Auburn fan. You're the biggest Florida fan, because A&M has beaten Auburn twice. Or yeah, they've beaten Auburn twice, right? They've beaten Florida twice. You're rooting for both of those teams to. You're rooting for Auburn to get safely into the tournament. You're rooting for Florida to somehow finish strong here and pick up a couple more quality wins to at least maybe be in the conversation heading into the SEC tournament. You're rooting for Missouri to safely make their way into the field.
Yeah.
You're rooting for Arkansas to do the same, because these are the games you have left. But the way A&M is playing tells me that they're going to beat one of Arkansas, Tennessee, or Alabama at home. I don't know who it's going to be, but I have to believe they're going to beat one of those teams at home. And so if they do that and they avoid the bad losses at LSU or Ole Miss, I have no idea how you cannot put them in the field of 68. Just my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think that would be enough, because if we're still going to penalize that team that finishes 12-6 in the league, or 13-5, they're absolutely in. But they finished 12-6 in the league, and we're going to penalize them over a loss on November 17th and December 20th. And they went 12-6 and the SEC. I don't know what we're doing. But I know there's a lot more that goes into it than that. But that's the way I would look at it. But again, this is all based on predicting ahead factors that are going to change based on game results and outcomes and those kind of things. But this is what we have to go on right now, and this is why I would make the case that they will get in, which I said that weeks ago. I said, I'm just going to tell you right now, that's my prediction. I think A&M gets in, and they have to keep playing the way they have to do it. But Kentucky, on the other hand, I have more questions about. So,
yeah, I think A&M will get in too. Again, that what we're doing is we're bringing up all sides of the issue. 3 things, and you said it in a roundabout way. A&M does not yet have a win over a team that's a slam dunk to make the field. Again, 3 against teams that are there right now, and 2 more against Florida, which is solid NIT at this point. Number 2, if you like the predictive computers and you're just trying to get the best teams in, A&M's got a strong case. It averages 35. BPI and Bart Torvik both have A&M in the top 30. If you get the best teams in, that's an indicator of A&M should be there. But here's one thing, and again, I don't want to harp on A&M any longer. We need to move on to the last 2 teams. But A&M did have bad loss avoidance in non-conference a year ago. Didn't beat any teams of consequence really there. in the out-of-conference portion, but the only losses were Wisconsin and TCU. Those weren't bad losses, but the lack of big wins in the out-of-conference portion kept them out. This year, A&M doesn't have big wins in the out-of-conference portion and has 2 bad losses. So just bringing up all sides here. Okay, next one, and I think this is getting very interesting because I like your phrase, putting yourself in position to be in position. That's what Mississippi State has done recently. State is 47 in the net, 49 in the predictive computers, 16-8 overall. 49 strength of resume, 2-4 on the road, 4-1 neutral, 2-5 against quad 1, 2-3 quad 2, a combined 12-0 against 3-4. But it's who those teams are within that. Beating Marquette on a neutral floor. Marquette 16 in the net, beat TCU at home, 24 in the net. I think a better team than that in the eyes of the committee probably. And then beating Missouri at home. State keeps racking up quality wins and gets bad loss avoidance. This is a team to watch.
Yeah, I think so. They've won 4 in a row, but I can't see them getting in without a 500 SEC record.
Yeah.
I can't see them at 8-10 unless they were to get to the SEC tournament championship, which, as we know, may not mean anything. I just feel like that's in this SEC. We just talked about the flip side with A&M. It's like if we can make the argument for a 12-6 A&M getting left out, and I know it's different because we're talking bad losses and good wins and that kind of stuff, but how can we possibly make the argument that an 8-10 Mississippi State team should get in? I mean, that's my thing, which means, look, at this point, right, all they have to do is go 4-3 to be 8-10. But I think they've got to go, I don't know. That's my only issue right now. Or excuse me, 4-3, is that right? Yeah. So they got to get to 9-9, which means they got to go 5-2 the rest of the way. Their remaining schedule: at Arkansas, home against Kentucky, at Ole Miss, at Missouri, home against A&M, home against South Carolina, at Vanderbilt. Totally possible that they can get to 9-9 because the Ole Miss games, the South Carolina game, the Vanderbilt game, which that one I think is a little tricky. I don't know. Like, that's asking a lot, I think. Even for a team that's won 4 in a row and is playing really well, they're not great on the road. They've kept it close on the road, but like it's getting over that hump, knowing that now these are kind of, some of these games are must win on the road. And so can they do that, right? They're just playing a lot better. And like we said, even go back to the Alabama game, that's on the road. They lost that when they had a chance. They've had a lot of close games. They played a tough schedule. They're like LSU light in terms of the SEC schedule to this point. But I don't know. I think that's, to me, they've got to go 5-2 in their final 7. I just think 8-10. What is the argument if they go 8-10? That would be my question for A&M.
Well, argument is you got
Excuse me,
two really
Mississippi
strong
State.
wins over Marquette and TCU, and I know TCU played without Miles that day, but I mean those are two pretty.
In league
When's
play?
the last time a sub 500 team in SEC play got in?
I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but
it's
the
happened,
difference,
but it's been a while.
The difference would be it was probably maybe a stronger SEC than this year. Now the net loves the SEC. That's something to always keep in mind when you start making these projections. The net absolutely loves the SEC because right now all these teams we talked about are all in the top 50.
9 teams in the top 50 in the net. Yep.
Yeah. So, and Mississippi State's the second to last. Missouri's the last one right now, which is why I said I wouldn't be completely sold on Missouri being safe yet. Which we know that we both said that, but again, it's not that I would push for Mississippi State to get in this thing, but I just think it's a hard sell at 8-10. So to me, the only thing that matters for Mississippi State is bad loss avoidance, but also getting 9 SEC wins, because I think anything else lower than that, I just don't know. Even with a strong schedule, right? A team that's had to play Alabama twice, Tennessee twice. Can you just sell people on that, though? That you had to play the 2 top teams twice and you lost all those games? I don't know how you can sell that. So that's my only issue.
All right, I'm going to give you the other side. I think if State gets to 9-9 and wins a game in the SEC tournament, I think it's going to be hard to leave State out.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like I said, 9 is the magic number. Like, I think
Yeah.
they've got to get to 9-9 because once again, it's just I don't in this year's SEC, all we've talked about is how there's 2 teams that are safe and everybody else still could play their way out. I just don't know how you could take a team that's 8-10 in that landscape and tell me that I'm not saying I would, SEC bias guy here. I would push for them to get in, but I think sometimes it's like you also have to look at it on the outside and if there's a Big 12 team, or a Big 10 team that is in a similar scenario, if one of those teams went 8-10, I think they'd have a stronger case. That's all I'm saying.
Well, the part on the SEC record that I would push back on, and again, I question how much the committee will do its research because I think that the committee did not do its research on A&M last year. Just because I see something and it seems clear to me does not mean the committee will necessarily pick up on that. It's not a normal SEC schedule. They played Alabama twice, played Tennessee twice. Let's see. Who else? Who are their other play twice opponents? South Carolina's one, so that helps in terms of picking up wins. And who am I missing here?
Actually, let me give you something real quick while you're on
Missouri. Play Missouri twice.
The last 8-10
team
to get in, real quick.
Ole Miss, okay, of course. Okay.
Last 8-10 team, we should have known this, was the Alabama team in 2018.
Okay, so what happens? And that's your typical Alabama plays a tough out of conference schedule?
Alabama's strength of schedule was 8, I think, that year.
Yeah.
They lost their final 5 games in the regular season to finish 8-10 in the league. But then they won their first 2 SEC tournament games. That's the Colin Sexton year, right? Because they played Virginia Tech in the first round, lost to Villanova in the second round. But that strength of schedule was a lot better, right? I mean, Mississippi State's strength schedule is not bad, but I think that was I'm going back through this. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone else like that's the most recent example. I can't really think of any others beyond that in the past decade. So that's why I keep saying that, because that's one team that's done it in the past. I mean, I'm going way back here. Since the expansion, that's the only team that's done it. So
the only team
with a sub 500 conference record, yeah.
Wow. Okay, I thought there would have been more than one, but
I mean, look, I'm looking
makes a
through
pretty
it now.
strong case that you'd better get to 500 in your league.
Yeah, like I'm just looking, unless I'm just completely missing one somewhere. I'm on KenPom right now, going through every single year. I see a lot of NIT seedings, but for sub 500 SEC teams, I am only seeing 2018 Alabama, which finished 8-10 in the league, as Florida got in at 9-9 in 2019. My goodness, some years it's taken 11 SEC wins to get in. Missouri got in at 8-8. Now that was, how'd they get in at 8-8? What happened that year? It's 21. Maybe games got canceled. Maybe still games were getting canceled. I don't remember. But Missouri got in at 8-8 as a 9 seed in 2021. But yeah, that's it. So get to 9.
What was Vandy, the Bryce Drew year? Was that 10-8 or 9-9?
I don't. What year would that have been?
2017, I think.
10-8.
Okay. Wow.
Yep. So get to 9, or may the odds ever be in your favor. So.
And A&M got to 9 last year, and it didn't matter.
Yep. So.
Okay, last team here is Florida, which the computers love. Predictive computers got Florida at 46, which is exactly where the net has Florida. Strength of resume, 61, according to ESPN. 13-11 overall. By the way, the Gators are the 10th team out of the field according to Bracket Matrix. A&M the second team out. State the fourth team out. Gators are 3-5 on the road, 2-3 neutral, 2-9 against Quad 1. That's the problem, is they've not beaten the teams they could have beaten to boost their resume. Wouldn't have taken much. 1-2 Quad 2, 6-0 Quad 3, 4-0 Quad 4. Those wins, Tennessee at home, Missouri at home, I think it's going to be a tough road for the Gators.
Yeah, I mean, Florida's issue is the same one I've been talking about. It's loss of the loss on the number on the right column.
Yep.
It can't get much higher. And, I think Florida can have a strong finish in terms of wins, but it's what do these wins do for you with
They're going to
left
be
against
empty
Vanderbilt.
wins.
2 games left against Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, Georgia, LSU. That's 5 of their final 7 games. So theoretically, Florida should finish 11-7 in the league. But if they lose to Arkansas and Kentucky, where are the good wins? They wouldn't be there. They wouldn't have enough. So they're an example of go 11-7 in league play and may still not be enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, that's why you have to look at some of these, and this could be an interesting year because again, think about it. Let's say Florida goes 11-7, maybe that's not enough. A&M goes 12-6, and we're thinking there's still a possibility that may not be enough. But yet Mississippi State goes 8-10, and there's some. That's why I said I don't see any path in that scenario. How you could justify that? So
well, what they need is they need Kentucky to get, well, other than Kentucky's competition on the bubble, but I mean they need to beat Kentucky at home, and for that to be a win of significance. The problem is that Arkansas game, beating them in Fayetteville is going to be really tough. I think in Gainesville, I don't know that I'd pick it, but I could see it. And then the other wins just don't matter. It's just bad loss avoidance at this point. I mean, that's a team, let's say that they go 6-1 from here on out.
they're in.
Then you're 12-6. Still, again, not a lot of meat on that. Yeah, but I mean, okay.
They're not
well,
safely
that would
in,
then
but
your
they
wins
would
at
be
that
in.
point.
Well,
That's when Nashville in the tournament is really going to matter, and who you play. You'd like to get maybe a game against an Arkansas or Missouri that's a tournament team and win that one. Then you can rest your case a little easier. And then you say, well, hey, look, we didn't really have any terrible losses this year, which would be true.
Look, as always, you got to have enough teams to fill the tournament. And every year we're going to say the bubble's bad, but at some point you have to be able to fill the tournament. And right now, I think you could go into the SEC tournament with probably at least 4 teams that need to do something to feel good about getting into the tournament. And so it's like that's a very interesting setup. So the SEC tournament, I think, will have some high stakes this year. Even if last year we thought the same, and it ultimately didn't matter for one team in Texas A&M, but those early round games are going to have some high stakes because I think you are going to look at least 4 teams, assuming that everything projects ahead the way you think it's going to, which means it won't because it's the SEC. But I really think we're gonna head into that tournament with saying, all right, here are the 4 different scenarios that can play out for these 4 teams, and who those 4 teams are, still to be determined. So
we will have you covered when we get there. We've got you covered all basketball season. We've done predictions on every game involving SEC teams. We've done recaps for every SEC night so far. Best way to get all those, hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. That helps us get found a little bit too. We'll try to do these bracketologies on Thursday or Friday every week of the year from here on. May or may not get to those. Some weeks we got baseball coming up too, which is just going to double the workload. And of course, we're continually following football. So anyway, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of that. He is Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14. We'll see you again soon.